There is a prison that has no walls, no iron bars, no locked doors, no chains wrapped around the wrists. Yet every single day, millions willingly enter it. The prison is built in a single moment. A careless word, a disrespectful glance, a betrayal that cuts deeper than expected, a stranger's insult, a loved one's disappointment. In an instant, the mind ignites. The heartbeat quickens, the chest tightens, thoughts sharpen into weapons, and before we even realize what has happened, we have surrendered ourselves, not to another person, not to fate, but to our own anger. We often believe that anger makes us powerful. It feels like strength because it arrives with force. It demands action. It convinces us that raising our voice is courage, that revenge is justice, that emotional explosion is honesty. But beneath its fiery appearance lies something far more dangerous. Loss of command. The greatest tragedy is not that someone insults us. The greatest tragedy is that they are able to reach inside our mind without permission and decide what kind of person we become. Think about that for a moment. How many times have we allowed another person's ignorance to dictate our peace? How many nights have we replayed a conversation long after everyone else had forgotten it? How many opportunities have disappeared because our emotions made decisions our wisdom never would have approved? Every uncontrolled outburst leaves behind invisible ruins. Relationships fracture. Respect quietly disappears. Trust dissolves. Most painfully of all, we begin to lose respect for ourselves. Because deep inside, we know that the words we spoke did not come from our highest self. We know that the actions we took were not born from clarity, but from temporary blindness. Anger always promises satisfaction. It almost never delivers it. Instead, it leaves us exhausted, ashamed, restless, still replaying the battle long after it has ended. The ancient philosophers understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. They observed that the fiercest wars were rarely fought between nations. They were fought within a single human heart. One part demanded immediate revenge. Another whispered for patience. One sought domination. The other searched for understanding. Every day, every conversation, every unexpected insult became another battlefield where character was either strengthened or surrendered. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius carried responsibilities that would crush most people today. Plagues swept through his empire. Wars raged at its borders. Friends betrayed him. Political enemies surrounded him. Every day offered countless reasons for rage. Yet in the quiet pages of his private journal, never intended for anyone else's eyes, he reminded himself, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Notice what he did not say. He did not say to defeat your enemy. He did not say to humiliate your enemy. He did not say to silence your enemy. His concern was something infinitely more valuable. Protect your own character. Because the moment another person's cruelty transforms us into a cruel person, they have already won. This is the hidden psychology of anger. We imagine it is directed outward. In reality, it is almost always destroying us from within. Modern neuroscience has revealed something remarkably similar. When anger overwhelms us, the emotional centers of the brain seize control before the rational mind has the chance to respond. Our vision narrows. Our thinking becomes rigid. The future disappears. Only the immediate emotional threat remains. It is as though an ancient survival system mistakes an insult for a life or death attack. The body prepares for war, even when no war exists, and so we speak words we cannot reclaim. We send messages we immediately regret. We make decisions that echo for years, not because we are evil, not because we are weak, but because we surrendered the steering wheel of our own mind. The tragedy is that most people spend their lives trying to control everyone except the only person they ever truly can. They try to change difficult people. They try to silence critics. They try to eliminate disrespect. They try to build a world where nothing ever offends them. Such a world has never existed. It never will. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. These words are often repeated. Rarely are they fully understood, because reacting differently is not simply about remaining silent. It is about reclaiming authorship over our own soul. The insult belongs to another. The reaction belongs to us. The betrayal belongs to another. The response belongs to us. The chaos belongs to the world. The discipline belongs to us. This realization changes everything. For if our peace depends upon everyone behaving exactly as we wish, then our peace is already lost. Someone will disappoint us tomorrow. Someone will misunderstand us next week. Someone will insult us next month. Human nature guarantees it. The question is not whether anger will knock on the door. It certainly will. The question is whether we will invite it inside and ask it to rule our home. Seneca, one of history's greatest students of the human mind, wrote words that remain startlingly relevant nearly 2,000 years later. Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. Consider how often this proves true. The original insult may last only a few seconds. Our anger keeps it alive for weeks. The criticism may occupy one conversation. Our resentment allows it to occupy our thoughts every day afterward. The event ends. We refuse to let it die, and so we become both the prisoner and the prison guard. We carry burdens that no one else remembers placing upon us. We reopen wounds with our own thoughts. We relive battles against opponents who have long since moved on. This is why mastering anger is not merely about becoming calmer. It is about reclaiming our freedom. Real freedom has never meant controlling the world outside us. It has always meant refusing to become a slave to the storms within. This journey is not about suppressing emotion until we become cold. It is not about pretending pain does not exist, nor is it about allowing others to walk over us without consequence. True strength has never been numbness. It is conscious command. It is the ability to feel the fire without becoming consumed by it, to experience injustice without surrendering justice within ourselves, to encounter hatred without becoming another source of hatred. This is one of the hardest disciplines a human being can undertake, because anger speaks loudly. Wisdom almost always whispers, and in the noise of modern life, the loudest voice usually wins, unless we deliberately train ourselves to hear the quieter one. Today we begin that training together, not to become emotionless, but to become unshakable, not to escape conflict, but to walk through it without losing ourselves. Because there is no greater victory than standing in the middle of chaos and discovering that the only thing you truly needed to conquer was never the world, it was the storm within. This introduction naturally sets up the next section, where we begin exploring why anger controls the human mind and the first psychological principle for mastering it. If we are honest with ourselves, anger rarely arrives without first wearing another face. It disguises itself as wounded pride, as disappointment, as fear, as humiliation, as the desperate need to be understood. By the time we recognize it, the disguise has already fallen away, revealing the fire beneath. This is why so many people believe their anger is caused by others. My boss made me angry. My partner made me lose my temper. That stranger ruined my day. It is an understandable conclusion. After all, the spark appeared to come from somewhere outside us. But a spark alone cannot create an inferno. It can only ignite what has already been prepared to burn. This is where the first great lesson begins. Anger is rarely born in the present moment. It is often the echo of old wounds, repeated expectations, and unexamined beliefs carried silently from yesterday into today. A careless comment from a stranger hurts because it awakens something that was already sleeping inside us. A small criticism feels unbearable because our identity has become attached to being right. A delay in traffic becomes unbearable because we believe the world owes us convenience. Every explosion has roots that stretch much deeper than the event itself. The philosophers of old understood this long before psychology gave us names like cognitive distortion, emotional conditioning, or trauma response. They observed the human soul with relentless honesty. They watched how one expectation, left unquestioned, could become years of suffering. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." At first glance, these words seem impossible. How can we simply choose? If someone insults us, If someone betrays us, if someone lies to us, surely the pain is real. And indeed, it is. Marcus was never denying pain. He was separating two experiences that most people confuse. There is what happens, and there is the meaning we attach to what happens. Between those two things lies the birthplace of anger. Imagine someone speaks harshly to us. The words strike our ears. That is reality. Immediately afterward, another voice begins speaking. Not theirs, but our own. How dare they? They don't respect me. I have to prove them wrong. I can't let this go. Notice something extraordinary. The suffering is no longer coming from the original words. It is coming from the endless conversation we begin having with ourselves. One insult becomes 100, not because it is repeated aloud, but because we repeat it internally. The mind becomes both storyteller and audience. Modern psychology confirms this remarkable insight. Researchers studying emotional regulation have found that events themselves often account for only a fraction of our emotional experience. The greater influence comes from interpretation. The stories we construct, the assumptions we make, the future catastrophes we imagine, the invisible conversations we rehearse. We become angry not only because something happened, we become angry because of what we believe that event means about us. This realization is uncomfortable because it removes our favorite excuse. If our emotions are created entirely by other people, then we remain victims forever. But if our interpretation shapes our experience, then we possess far more power than we imagined. Power is frightening. Responsibility always is. It is easier to blame the world than to examine ourselves. It is easier to accuse others than to confront our own ego. The ego is clever. It whispers that every disagreement is an attack, that every criticism is disrespect, that every inconvenience is an injustice. Soon we begin living as though the entire world has declared war against us. And once we believe we are surrounded by enemies, anger becomes our permanent companion. Seneca saw this pattern with astonishing clarity. He warned that anger is not simply an emotion. It is a judgment. The moment we declare that something should never have happened, we begin feeding the fire. How many times have we said those words without speaking them aloud? They should appreciate me. They should understand. They should agree. They should apologize. They should change. Should. One small word. An entire lifetime of disappointment. Reality has never promised to obey our expectations. People forget. People disappoint. People misunderstand. People betray. Not because the universe is broken, but because human beings are imperfect, including us. That final truth is perhaps the hardest to accept. We often demand patience from others while offering very little ourselves. We hope our mistakes will be forgiven, yet we struggle to forgive theirs. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would encounter people who were selfish, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and difficult. Not because he enjoyed pessimism, because he understood reality. Imagine beginning every day with that expectation. Not cynicism, preparation. When difficult people eventually appear, they no longer shock us. The storm loses its power when we knew the clouds were coming. Most anger is intensified by surprise. We secretly expect the world to behave differently than it always has. Then reality disappoints us once again. Preparation transforms disappointment into acceptance. Acceptance transforms emotional chaos into stability. There is another hidden source of anger few people recognize. The desire to control what was never ours to control. We try to control opinions, reputations, outcomes, traffic, weather, politics, other people's emotions, other people's decisions, other people's respect. The more tightly we grip these things, the more violently frustration tears them from our hands. Epictetus offered one of the simplest yet most demanding principles ever written. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Simple words. A lifetime's discipline. What is truly within our power? Not another person's mouth. Only our own. Not another person's choices. Only our own. Not another person's character. Only our own. Every moment spent trying to govern another person's mind is a moment stolen from governing our own. This is why anger leaves us feeling exhausted. We are attempting the impossible. We wage war against reality itself. Reality never loses. We always do. And yet there is hope hidden inside this realization. Because if we stop fighting reality, we recover enormous energy. Energy once wasted on resentment becomes available for growth. Energy once consumed by revenge becomes available for wisdom. Energy once trapped inside endless arguments becomes available for building the life we actually desire. The calmest people are not those who experience fewer provocations. They are those who have stopped demanding that life obey their expectations. They understand something the angry mind cannot. Peace is not found when the world finally becomes reasonable. Peace begins when we stop making our tranquility dependent upon unreasonable people. This does not happen overnight. The mind has practiced anger for years, perhaps decades. It has carved deep pathways of reaction. Like water flowing through the same valley, our thoughts instinctively return to familiar patterns. But every time we interrupt the cycle, every time we pause before speaking, every time we examine the story instead of blindly believing it, we carve a new path. At first it feels unnatural, then difficult, then possible. Finally, it becomes who we are. Character is not created in one heroic moment. It is forged in thousands of quiet victories that nobody else will ever see. The victory of remaining silent when shouting would be easier. The victory of walking away when revenge feels sweeter. The victory of asking, "Is this true?" before believing every angry thought that enters the mind. These victories rarely earn applause, but they build something infinitely more valuable than applause. They build a person who cannot be ruled by circumstance. And that kind of person has already begun to master the greatest battle of all. In the next section, we'll dive even deeper into the neuroscience of anger, the illusion of revenge, and Seneca's timeless warning that anger is temporary madness, connecting ancient wisdom with modern psychology in a dark, cinematic narrative. There is a reason anger feels so convincing. When it arrives, it does not knock politely. It storms into the mind as though it were the voice of absolute truth. It tells us that we have been wronged. It insists that action cannot wait. It whispers that if we do not respond immediately, we are weak. In those moments, anger rarely presents itself as a temptation. It presents itself as justice. That is what makes it so dangerous. If anger announced itself honestly, if it said, "I am about to cloud your judgment, damage your relationships, and leave you with regrets that will outlive this moment," few of us would welcome it. Instead, it wears the mask of righteousness. It convinces us that we are defending our dignity, that we are protecting our honor, that we are merely giving people what they deserve. But beneath that noble disguise lies something much darker, a temporary surrender of reason. Seneca described anger with startling precision when he wrote, "Anger is a brief madness." Pause with those words. Not irritation, not frustration, madness. He chose that word carefully, because in the grip of intense anger, we no longer see the world as it is. We see only fragments. We remember every offense while forgetting every kindness. We magnify another person's faults while becoming blind to our own. We interpret silence as disrespect. We mistake disagreement for hostility. We imagine motives we could never possibly know. Our perception becomes distorted. The mind, once capable of reflection, becomes consumed by reaction. Modern neuroscience has uncovered a process that echoes Seneca's insight in remarkable ways. When we perceive a threat, whether physical or emotional, the brain's alarm systems activate with astonishing speed. Stress hormones surge through the body. The heart beats faster. Muscles tighten. Breathing becomes shallow. Blood is redirected toward immediate action rather than careful reflection. This response once protected our ancestors from predators. Today, the same machinery often awakens because of an email, a comment on social media, a sarcastic remark, a disagreement across the dinner table. The body prepares to fight for survival, while the real danger exists only inside our interpretation. This is why, in the heat of anger, our thinking becomes painfully narrow. We stop asking questions. We stop listening. We stop seeking understanding. We seek only confirmation. Confirmation that we are right. Confirmation that they are wrong. Confirmation that retaliation is justified. The angry mind behaves like a courtroom that has already reached its verdict. Evidence is no longer examined. It is collected only to support the sentence. How many friendships have ended because two people became prosecutors instead of listeners? How many families have spent years divided because neither side wished to understand before being understood? How many lives have quietly drifted apart because pride spoke louder than wisdom? These tragedies rarely begin with hatred. They begin with one moment, one sentence, one uncontrolled reaction that neither person believed would matter. Yet moments become memories. Memories become habits. Habits become character. Character becomes destiny. This is why mastering our temper is never about one isolated argument. It is about protecting the person we are becoming. Every angry reaction teaches the mind something. It says, this is how we survive. The brain remembers. The next trigger arrives. The response comes even faster. Soon we are no longer choosing anger. We are practicing it, like a musician repeating the same notes every day until they become effortless. We rehearse emotional habits until they define us. But here is the beautiful truth. The same brain that learns anger can learn peace. The same mind that rehearses resentment can rehearse patience. The same person who has spent years reacting can begin responding. This transformation does not happen because life becomes easier. It happens because we begin noticing the tiny space that exists between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, whose reflections have inspired generations seeking inner freedom, wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That space is almost invisible at first. A single breath, a heartbeat, a brief pause before words become actions. Most people never notice it. Life moves too quickly. Emotion feels too urgent. The impulse is mistaken for necessity. Yet everything changes when we begin living inside that small space. Because that space is where freedom lives. It is where character is forged. It is where wisdom quietly waits while emotion demands immediate obedience. Imagine someone insults us. The old habit says, strike back. The ego says, do not let them win. Fear says, if you remain calm, they will think you are weak. But in that tiny pause, another voice appears. A quieter one that asks, what kind of person do we become if we answer hatred with hatred? That single question can interrupt an entire lifetime of conditioning. Not because it removes the emotion, but because it reminds us that emotion does not deserve absolute authority. Feelings are real. They're not always reliable. This distinction changes everything. Many people spend their lives believing that every emotion demands expression. If they feel angry, they believe they must act angry. If they feel offended, they believe they must retaliate. If they feel hurt, they believe someone else must pay. But emotions are messengers, not masters. They carry information. They should not be handed the throne. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Again and again, he reminded himself that the quality of his life depended less on external events than on the condition of his own mind. He knew that an emperor who could command entire armies but could not command his own temper was still a servant. What greater humiliation is there than to possess immense power over others while remaining powerless before oneself? History is filled with conquerors who ruled nations but failed to rule their own passions. Their victories reshaped maps. Their anger destroyed lives. The greatest empire we will ever govern is far smaller. It is the territory between our own thoughts. Every morning we awaken as its ruler. Every day we decide whether that kingdom will be governed by wisdom or by impulse. One careless moment may seem insignificant, but every kingdom falls one neglected stone at a time. Every uncontrolled temper weakens the foundation. Every act of restraint strengthens it. This is why revenge is such a seductive illusion. It promises relief. It promises closure. It promises satisfaction. But look closely. How often has revenge truly brought peace? For a brief moment, perhaps, a sharp word returned, a cutting remark delivered, an argument won. Then what remains? The same restless heart, the same unsettled mind, the same emptiness waiting beneath the victory. Because revenge solves almost nothing within us. It changes another person's pain. It rarely heals our own. Seneca warned that the man who seeks revenge often resembles the one who first caused the injury. The distance between victim and offender grows smaller with every act of retaliation. Without realizing it, we become reflections of the very behavior we once condemned. That is anger's final deception. It convinces us we are defending our character while quietly eroding it. The strongest among us are not those who never feel anger. Such people do not exist. The strongest are those who recognize its arrival without immediately surrendering to its commands. They observe the fire. They acknowledge its heat, but they refuse to feed it. Like a traveler who notices a storm gathering on the horizon, they prepare rather than panic. They know every storm eventually exhausts itself. No emotion, however fierce, can burn forever. The question is whether we add more fuel while it lasts. Every thought of revenge is fuel. Every imagined argument is fuel. Every conversation replayed in the theater of the mind is fuel. We often believe we are holding on to anger. In truth, anger is holding on to us, and every moment we carry it, we pay the price with something infinitely more valuable than time. We pay with our peace, our attention, our ability to see beauty in ordinary moments, our capacity to love without suspicion, our freedom. The world will always contain people who provoke us. That cannot be prevented. But we are not required to become permanent residents inside the prisons they accidentally or intentionally build for us. There is another way, a quieter way, a stronger way. It begins not with changing them, but with reclaiming ourselves. If anger is the fire we see, then the ego is often the wood that keeps it burning. This is a truth few of us want to confront. It is easier to believe that our temper is caused by rude people, unfair circumstances, or constant disappointments. It protects our pride to think that the world is the problem and we are merely reacting to it. But the deeper we examine ourselves, the more uncomfortable the picture becomes. Very often, it is not the insult that wounds us. It is the image we have built of ourselves. The ego constructs a fragile identity. It whispers, I must always be respected. I must never be questioned. I must always appear competent. I must never lose. Every one of these beliefs becomes a hidden condition placed upon our peace. The moment reality fails to honor those conditions, anger rushes in to defend an identity that was never truly secure. This is why two people can experience the exact same event and respond in completely different ways. One person receives criticism and becomes furious. Another receives the same criticism, reflects upon it, and walks away unchanged. The difference is not the criticism. The difference is what each person's ego believes is under attack. Epictetus offered a profound insight into this when he taught that no one can truly harm our character unless we cooperate with the harm. This is a difficult idea to accept. Our instinct protests. What about betrayal? What about humiliation? What about injustice? These things are real. They hurt. They leave scars. But there is a second injury that is optional. The injury we continue inflicting upon ourselves long after the original event has ended. There are people who carry a single insult for 20 years, not because the insult lasted 20 years, because they chose never to release it. Imagine carrying a burning coal in your hand every day, hoping someone else will eventually feel the pain. This is resentment. It asks us to become prisoners of yesterday. It convinces us that remembering every offense somehow protects us from future suffering. In reality, it only guarantees that the past continues governing the present. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that every human being acts according to what they believe is right, even when they are mistaken. Think about the implications of that idea. The person who lies often believes they are protecting themselves. The person who insults may be speaking from insecurity rather than confidence. The person who betrays may be driven by fear rather than strength. Understanding this does not excuse harmful behavior. It does something far more important. It prevents us from allowing another person's ignorance to become our own. When we recognize that hurt people often hurt others, compassion quietly becomes possible. Not sentimental compassion, not naive forgiveness, but clear-eyed understanding. We stop asking, "Why would someone do this to me?" and begin asking, "What kind of suffering produces a person who behaves this way?" That single shift changes the emotional landscape. Curiosity begins replacing outrage. Understanding begins replacing condemnation. And with understanding comes freedom, because we can only remain consumed by hatred for so long before we begin resembling what we hate. Have you ever noticed how resentment changes a person's face? How years of bitterness harden the eyes? How every conversation eventually returns to old grievances? How joy slowly disappears beneath the weight of remembered injuries? Anger promises strength. Long-term resentment delivers exhaustion. It steals today's peace to preserve yesterday's pain. This is why forgiveness is so often misunderstood. Many believe forgiveness means pretending nothing happened. Others believe it means trusting someone who has repeatedly proven untrustworthy. Neither is true. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is remembering without remaining enslaved. It is releasing the emotional debt we keep demanding from people who may never repay it. It is saying, "I refuse to allow your actions to determine the quality of my inner life any longer." That is not weakness. It is one of the greatest acts of strength imaginable. Seneca observed that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Consider how many arguments never actually happen. We rehearse them while driving, while lying awake at night, while showering, while eating breakfast. Entire conversations unfold inside the theater of the mind. We predict every insult. We prepare every response. We defeat imaginary enemies. By the time we finally encounter the person, we have already exhausted ourselves fighting a battle that existed only within our own thoughts. The body cannot always distinguish between an imagined conflict and a real one. The heart races, the muscles tense, the jaw tightens, stress hormones continue flowing. We become physically drained by stories that have never left the imagination. How many peaceful days have we sacrificed to imaginary wars? The answer is almost certainly more than we care to admit. This is why the discipline of attention is so powerful. Where attention goes, emotion follows. If we feed every offense with hours of reflection, it grows. If we repeatedly revisit painful memories, they deepen their roots. But if we gently return our attention to the present moment, to our breathing, to our work, to our purpose, the emotional fire begins to lose its oxygen. Notice that this is not suppression. We are not pretending the emotion does not exist. We are refusing to worship it. There is a profound difference. Many people secretly build identities around their anger. They introduce themselves through old betrayals. They define themselves by past disappointments. Every conversation becomes another opportunity to reopen wounds. Without realizing it, pain becomes familiar. Familiarity becomes comfort. Comfort becomes identity. Eventually, they no longer know who they are without the story of being wronged. This is one of anger's cruelest victories. It convinces us that letting go means losing part of ourselves. But what if the opposite is true? What if letting go is how we finally discover who we are beneath the wounds? Who are we when we're no longer replaying old arguments? Who are we when revenge no longer occupies our imagination? Who are we when another person's opinion no longer determines our emotional weather? These questions cannot be answered by philosophy alone. They must be answered through practice. Every day presents opportunities. Someone interrupts us. Someone misunderstands us. Someone speaks carelessly. Someone takes credit for our work. Someone fails to appreciate our effort. These moments are not interruptions to our training. They are the training. A calm mind is not built in peaceful conditions. It is forged in the presence of provocation. Just as steel is strengthened through fire rather than comfort, our character is strengthened through challenges rather than convenience. Each difficult person becomes an unexpected teacher. Each insult becomes an invitation. Each frustration becomes another chance to ask ourselves, will I surrender my peace or strengthen it? Slowly, almost imperceptibly, something begins to change. The pause between stimulus and response grows longer. The need to prove ourselves grows quieter. The ego loses its desperate hunger for validation. We begin to realize that not every battle deserves our participation. Not every opinion deserves our attention. Not every insult deserves our response. There is immense power in walking away from conflicts that promise nothing but the theft of our serenity. Silence, when chosen from strength rather than fear, is not surrender. It is mastery, for the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. True strength often speaks so softly that only those who possess it can recognize its voice. And as we continue this journey, we begin to understand one of life's deepest paradoxes. The person who cannot control others may still live in peace, but the person who cannot control themselves will never truly be free. There comes a moment in every life when we must make a choice. Not a choice between success and failure. Not a choice between wealth and poverty, but a far quieter choice. One that no one else can make for us. Will we continue reacting to life, or will we begin governing ourselves? This is the dividing line between those who are ruled by emotion and those who quietly shape their destiny. The world celebrates visible victories, promotions, awards, recognition, power, influence, but the greatest victories are almost always invisible. No audience applauds when we choose patience over retaliation. No headlines are written when we refuse to answer an insult. No trophies are given for the argument we never started. And yet these are the moments that define us far more than public success ever could. Because character is not revealed in comfort. It is revealed under pressure. Anyone can appear calm when everything unfolds according to plan. Anyone can seem patient when no one challenges them. Anyone can speak kindly when everyone agrees. The true measure of our discipline emerges only when life refuses to cooperate. When someone lies, when someone humiliates us, when someone takes advantage of our kindness, when someone deliberately tries to provoke us. In those moments, we discover whether our principles are decorations or foundations. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself repeatedly that every morning he would encounter difficult people, not because he expected misery, because he understood preparation. He was training his mind before the battle began. Consider how differently most of us begin our day. We wake up expecting everything to go smoothly. We expect people to be reasonable. We expect technology to work. We expect traffic to move. We expect appreciation. We expect fairness. Then reality arrives. A delayed message, an impatient customer, a disrespectful colleague, a careless driver, a family disagreement. Within hours, our peace has been negotiated away. Not because life became unusually difficult, because our expectations were unrealistic. Preparation changes everything. Imagine beginning each morning with quiet honesty. Today someone may misunderstand us. Today someone may disappoint us. Today someone may question our intentions. Today something may not go according to plan. None of this is extraordinary. It is simply life. Now imagine what happens when those moments actually arrive. Instead of saying, "I can't believe this is happening," we quietly think, "I knew this possibility existed." Immediately, the emotional shock weakens. The mind no longer feels ambushed. It feels prepared. Preparation is one of the greatest forms of emotional armor. Not because it prevents hardship, because it prevents surprise from multiplying hardship. There is another practice that quietly transforms the way we experience anger. The discipline of slowing down. Our age rewards speed. Instant replies, instant opinions, instant judgments, instant outrage. Everything encourages us to respond before we have truly understood. But wisdom has always moved more slowly than impulse. The ancient philosophers rarely praised quick reactions. They praised careful ones. Think about how many conflicts could have been avoided if just one person had waited 5 minutes before speaking. How many relationships would still exist if someone had slept before sending that message? How many careers would have been preserved if one angry email had remained in the drafts folder? Time has a remarkable ability to expose emotional illusions. What feels unbearable tonight often seems insignificant next week. What appears unforgivable today may become understandable next month. Anger thrives on urgency. Wisdom thrives on perspective. This is why creating distance is so powerful. Not distance from people alone, distance from the emotion itself. When anger says, "Respond now," we ask, will this still matter a year from now? When pride says, "Win this argument," we ask, what exactly am I winning? When resentment says, "Never forgive," we ask, who has carried this burden all these years? Questions interrupt impulses. Reflection weakens reaction. This is not hesitation born from fear. It is restraint born from strength. The strongest sword is not the one constantly swinging. It is the one controlled by a steady hand. There is an old tendency within all of us to confuse emotional intensity with truth. The louder the feeling, the more convinced we become that it must be right. But intensity proves nothing. Fear can feel overwhelming while being completely unfounded. Jealousy can feel convincing while being entirely imaginary. Anger can feel righteous while leading us toward actions we deeply regret. This is why we must learn to become observers of our own minds. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves obedience. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float past on the surface. Some are beautiful. Some are damaged. Some disappear quickly. Others linger for a while. Our thoughts are much the same. An angry thought appears. We notice it. We do not need to climb aboard and let it carry us downstream. We can simply observe. There is anger. There is disappointment. There is frustration. Notice the subtle difference. We are no longer saying, "I am anger." We are saying, "I am aware of anger." Awareness creates separation. Separation creates freedom. Freedom creates choice. This simple shift may seem insignificant. In reality, it changes the entire relationship we have with our emotions. Because if we are able to observe an emotion, then we are something greater than the emotion itself. We become the witness rather than the prisoner. This practice requires patience. The mind will wander. Old habits will return. Some days we will fail spectacularly. We will lose our temper, speak too quickly, regret our actions. That does not mean the journey has failed. It means we are human. Perfection has never been the goal. Progress has always been enough. Even Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest practitioners of self-discipline, filled his private journal with reminders. Not because he had already mastered himself, but because he knew mastery required constant practice. He was teaching himself, again and again and again. That realization should encourage us. The strongest minds were not born disciplined. They became disciplined through repetition. Each day they returned to the same principles. Each day they corrected themselves. Each day they chose awareness over impulse one more time. This is how transformation happens, not in dramatic moments, but in ordinary ones. One conversation, one temptation, one difficult morning, one deep breath, one decision to remain silent when anger begged us to speak. These moments seem too small to matter, yet our lives are nothing more than thousands of such moments woven together. Change enough of them, and we change ourselves. Slowly, people around us begin to notice something different. Not because we announce it, because peace has a presence. We no longer react to every insult. We no longer chase every argument. We no longer feel compelled to defend ourselves against every misunderstanding. Some will mistake this for weakness. Let them. Others will mistake it for indifference. Let them. Those who truly understand strength will recognize something else entirely. They will recognize a person who has stopped allowing the world to dictate the condition of their soul. And there is no greater freedom than that. Because the moment our inner world is no longer controlled by the chaos outside, we begin living from a place few people ever discover. A place where calm is no longer an accident. It has become a discipline, a way of being, a quiet form of power that no insult, no betrayal, and no storm can easily take away. There is one final illusion that anger asks us to believe. It whispers that if we let go, we lose. It tells us that calm is surrender, that forgiveness is weakness, that restraint is the language of cowards. For centuries, countless lives have been shaped by this lie. Entire families have remained divided because no one wished to be the first to soften. Friendships have dissolved because pride stood guard where humility should have entered. Nations have gone to war because leaders confused wounded egos with wounded honor. History reminds us of a painful truth. The greatest destruction is often born from people who were convinced they were justified. This is why we must ask ourselves a question that few ever dare to confront. What does it actually mean to win? If we win the argument but lose our peace, have we truly won? If we silence another person but become prisoners of bitterness, who is the victor? If our revenge leaves us restless long after the conflict has ended, what exactly have we gained? The answer is uncomfortable. Much of what we call victory is merely another form of defeat. Real victory is quieter. It cannot always be seen from the outside. It happens in the hidden places of the mind. It is the moment we refuse to become the person our anger desperately wants us to be. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice the precision of those words. He did not promise comfort. He did not promise fairness. He did not promise that difficult people would disappear from our lives. He pointed us toward the only territory that has ever truly belonged to us, our own mind. Everything else is borrowed. Reputation is borrowed. Money is borrowed. Status is borrowed. Even the body we inhabit changes with every passing year. But the quality of our character, that is the one possession no one can steal unless we hand it away ourselves. How many times have we handed it away? For a careless comment, for an online disagreement, for someone who will never remember our name. How extraordinary it is that we sometimes trade our peace for people who have never earned such influence over us. The mind does not become free by eliminating difficult people. It becomes free by refusing to give them authority over our inner world. Imagine carrying a glass of water. At first it feels light. After 1 minute, nothing seems wrong. After 1 hour, the arm begins to ache. After an entire day, the pain becomes unbearable. The weight of the glass has not changed, only the length of time we insisted on holding it. Resentment works the same way. The original injury may have been small. The years we spend carrying it make it unbearable. Many of us have become so accustomed to carrying emotional burdens that we mistake them for part of our identity. We say, "This is just who I am. I've always had a temper. I can't help it." But every habit begins as a choice repeated often enough to feel automatic. If anger can become a habit, so can patience. If resentment can become familiar, so can forgiveness. If reaction can be learned, then response can be learned as well. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. The ancient philosophers simply called it practice. Different language, the same truth. Every calm response strengthens a new pathway. Every conscious pause weakens an old one. Every decision to choose wisdom over impulse reshapes the architecture of the mind itself. Think about the hope hidden inside that realization. We are not condemned to remain the person we were yesterday. The angry child can become the patient adult. The impulsive young man can become the steady elder whose presence calms an entire room. The wounded heart can become a source of healing rather than harm. Transformation is possible, not because life becomes gentler, but because we become stronger. And strength, contrary to popular belief, is rarely loud. The strongest tree in the forest does not boast about its roots. It simply remains standing after every storm has passed. There is a certain kind of person we all remember. Someone whose presence immediately brought calm. Someone who never needed to raise their voice to command respect. Someone who listened more than they spoke. Someone who remained composed while everyone else surrendered to panic. We often admire such people without asking how they became that way. We assume they were born different. Perhaps they simply possessed a naturally peaceful temperament. More often, the truth is far less mysterious. They practiced, day after day, year after year, conversation after conversation, disappointment after disappointment. They lost their temper. They reflected. They apologized. They learned. Then they repeated the process. Not until they became perfect, but until they became intentional. That is the difference. An intentional life does not eliminate emotion. It refuses to become its servant. This is why our mornings matter. The first thoughts we allow into the mind quietly shape the rest of the day. If we begin with resentment, we search for reasons to remain resentful. If we begin with fear, the world suddenly appears full of threats. But if we begin by reminding ourselves of what truly lies within our control, the entire day unfolds differently. Imagine rising tomorrow before the noise begins, before the messages, before the headlines, before the endless demands. Imagine sitting quietly for a few moments, breathing deeply, reminding yourself, today I may be misunderstood. Today someone may test my patience. Today life may refuse to follow my plans. And none of these things can force me to abandon my character. That final sentence has extraordinary power. No one can force us. People can provoke. They can insult. They can deceive. They can disappoint. But they cannot reach inside our mind and pull the strings unless we surrender them. This realization is not merely comforting. It is liberating because it returns responsibility to where it has always belonged. Within us, there will still be difficult days. Moments when anger rises like a sudden wildfire. Moments when old habits whisper louder than wisdom. When that happens, do not condemn yourself. Observe yourself. Ask quietly, what is this anger trying to protect? Very often, it is protecting fear, or pride, or an expectation that reality never promised to fulfill. When we understand the root, the branches begin to lose their strength. Compassion toward ourselves becomes possible, and from self-understanding grows greater understanding for others. Slowly, the world begins to change, not because people become kinder, but because we stop expecting perfection from imperfect human beings. That may be the deepest freedom of all, to meet the world exactly as it is, without allowing it to steal who we have chosen to become. This is the path before us. It is not easy. It was never meant to be. Every day, we will be invited to return to our old habits. Every day, we will be tempted to surrender our peace for a fleeting moment of emotional satisfaction. Every day, we will have another opportunity to choose differently. That choice, repeated often enough, becomes character. Character, lived consistently, becomes destiny. And one day, almost without noticing, we will discover something remarkable. The situations that once controlled us no longer possess the same power. The insults grow quieter. The provocations lose their grip. The storms continue to arrive, but they no longer find chaos within us, because after all this time, we have finally understood a truth that cannot be purchased, inherited, or borrowed. The greatest victory in life is not defeating another person. It is reaching the point where no one else's anger can awaken our own. For the one who has mastered that, has discovered a freedom the world can neither give nor take away. Before we leave one another, let us remain here for just a little longer. Close your eyes, if only for a moment. Think back to the last time anger took control of your life. Perhaps it was yesterday. Perhaps it was years ago. Perhaps the memory still burns so vividly that your heart begins to race simply by recalling it. Notice what happens inside you. The scene returns. The words, the faces, the silence that followed, the regret. Now ask yourself a question that few people are willing to ask with complete honesty. What did anger truly give you? Did it bring peace? Did it restore your dignity? Did it heal your wounds? Did it make you stronger? Or did it simply leave another scar, one that you have carried ever since? We spend so much of our lives believing that anger protects us, but perhaps it has been asking for payment all along. Every outburst costs us something, a little more trust, a little more clarity, a little more self-respect, sometimes a relationship, sometimes an opportunity, sometimes years of our lives. And the greatest tragedy is that we often do not realize the price until long after it has been paid. There is an old saying that the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. Anger works in much the same way. The first reaction seems harmless. The second feels justified. The third becomes familiar. Soon, we are no longer choosing our responses. Our responses are choosing us. But today, we interrupt that pattern, not with grand promises, not with impossible expectations, simply with awareness. Awareness is where every transformation begins. The moment we can observe ourselves, we are no longer completely controlled by ourselves. That single realization is the first breath of freedom. From this day forward, there will still be difficult people. There will still be moments when your patience is tested. Someone will misunderstand your intentions. Someone will judge you without knowing your story. Someone will speak carelessly. Someone will disappoint you. Life will continue to unfold exactly as life always has. But perhaps something inside us will begin unfolding differently. Perhaps the next time anger knocks, we will not throw open the door. Perhaps we will pause. Take one slow breath. Feel our heartbeat. Notice the tension in our shoulders. Observe the stories forming inside the mind. And instead of asking, how do I make them suffer? We will ask, how do I remain true to myself? That one question has the power to change an entire life. Because every decision shapes the person we become. Every reaction lays another stone upon the foundation of our character. No one else is building that foundation. Not our family, not our enemies, not our friends, not society. We are, every single day, brick by brick, choice by choice, breath by breath. One day, years from now, someone may ask us how we became so calm, how we remained steady while others panicked, how we refused to answer hatred with hatred, how we walked through conflict without losing ourselves. They may assume we discovered some secret. There is no secret, only practice, only thousands of ordinary moments in which we quietly chose discipline over impulse, patience over pride, understanding over assumption, silence over unnecessary conflict. Again, and again, and again. That is how mountains are moved, not all at once, but one stone at a time. Remember this, the world will always offer you reasons to become angry. Every news headline, every careless driver, every unfair criticism, every broken promise, every betrayal. If your peace depends upon the world becoming peaceful first, you will wait forever. But if your peace depends upon the choices you make within your own mind, then freedom is available this very moment. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Those words echo across centuries because they refuse to let us hide behind theory. Knowledge alone changes nothing. Books alone change nothing. Quotes alone change nothing. Understanding becomes wisdom only when it enters our daily actions. When the next insult arrives, when the next disappointment appears, when the next temptation to lose control rises within us, that is where philosophy stops being words. That is where it becomes life. Perhaps no one around us will notice immediately. People often overlook quiet strength. They admire loud victories. But the deepest transformations happen in silence. Roots grow beneath the surface long before branches reach toward the sky. Do not become discouraged if your progress feels invisible. Invisible progress is still progress. Every calm response is changing you. Every moment of restraint is strengthening you. Every act of self-mastery is shaping a future version of yourself who will look back on these struggles with gratitude rather than regret. And perhaps, years from now, when someone else stands where we once stood, consumed by resentment, controlled by rage, searching desperately for peace, our own life will become the answer they were searching for, not because we preached, but because we lived differently, because calm became contagious, because discipline inspired trust, because our character spoke louder than our words ever could. So when you leave this moment, carry only one thought with you. Not that you must never feel anger. You will. You are human. Instead, remember this. You do not have to become everything you feel. You are greater than your impulses, stronger than your habits, wiser than your first reaction. Within you exists a place that no insult can touch, no betrayal can corrupt, no injustice can destroy. Guard that place. Return to it often. Build your life upon it. Because in the end, the person who conquers their own temper accomplishes something infinitely greater than conquering another human being. They conquer the only kingdom they were ever destined to rule, the kingdom within. And once that kingdom is governed by wisdom rather than anger, no storm, no enemy, and no circumstance can ever truly take your freedom away. If this message spoke to something deep within you, do not let it remain only a passing thought. Carry it into tomorrow. Carry it into your next conversation. Carry it into the next moment when your heart begins to race and your temper begs to take control. That will be the true test. And if, in that moment, you remember even one sentence from today, pause, breathe, choose your character over your emotion, then this journey has already begun. Because the strongest person in the room is not the one who can overpower everyone else. It is the one who, standing in the middle of chaos, still possesses the courage to master themselves